Welcome to Word on the Street. I'm your host, Chanel. We have a blast from the past. We have Miss Ann Petrie, join us today. We also have Mr. Langston Hughes. So once again, this is Word on the Street. I'm your host, Chanel. Hope y'all enjoy. Let's get it.
We must die, would it not be like hogs, haunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, make their mock at our cursed lot. If we must die, oh let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us through dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. We far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows and deal one death blow. Without before us lies the open grave. Like men we face the murderers, cowardly packed, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back.
Welcome back to Word on the Street. My name is Chanella. We have a blast from the past today. We have Miss Ann Petrie joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. Okay, so my question is, what made you write the story of my most Jim Crow experience?
When I was younger, there were some racist incidents that happened in my past, and it was outrageous. For example, there was a white person that decided that they didn't want us on the beach. So my father actually wrote a letter to the crisis. That was probably around 1920, 1921, and he complained about the teacher who refused to teach me and my sisters and also my cousins. So it was just like, oh goodness, so we just had to find something else to do and try to complain about it for us to get our education. And I also was humiliated by one of my teachers. She made me actually read a piece from The Gold Bug, and it was a literate part, and she tried to be funny about it. So.
Okay, now when you said your teacher, humiliate you in front of the classroom, my question is, when did you become serious about writing and creating your work? Like, when was that?
Actually, when I started working as a pharmacist at our family business, we actually had a pharmacy, and we actually I didn't really want to do pharmacy or whatever, but I had to do what I had to do. But once I started writing short stories and getting into writing all kinds of things, I just put my creative juices on paper. So once I moved to New York, that's when I started getting stuff published in the crisis and starting getting my stuff out there.
Okay, speaking of New York, you wrote a novel, The Street. What made you decide to write that?
Well, when I moved to New York, I experienced a whole bunch of black people in the black population of Harlem. And there were kids who actually had poor living, was living on the street. There were black people living on the street. It was, very poor. So it was like they had nowhere to stay, and people were treating them bad even though they were living on the street. So it was like, it was being worse on top of worse. So that's what really, brought that to mind, that, okay, I really experienced this, I really saw what black people went through, and that just made me want to write about it and put it into a novel.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Miss Ann Petrie. Stay tuned after this commercial break. We have Mr. Langston Hughes. To a dark girl. I love you for your brownness and for the roundness of your breast. I love you for the breaking sadness in your voice and shadows where you wayward eyelids rest. Something of old forgotten queens lurk in the leaf of bandit of your walk, and something of shackled slave sobs in the rhythm of your talk. Oh, little brown girl, born for sorrow's maid, keep all of your queenness forgetting that you once were a slave, and let your full lips laugh at you. Good evening, and we're back to Word on the Street. Today we have a Blast from the Past special. Earlier we had Miss Ann Petrie, and now we're interviewing Mr. Langston Hughes. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well.
Well, that's good. You know, we have a couple of questions for you. First, what made you fall in love with books and, writing?
It was back in high school, when I wrote my first piece, jazz poetry. It was When Suits Wears Red. I was reading when I was in high school. Again, during that time, that's when I discovered I love, books.
And with that being said, who helped your work gain public notoriety?
When I came across Miss Michelle Lindsay, shared some of my poems with her. When I was a busboy at Warden Park Hotel, she was impressed with my poems. So, she publicized some of my books. By the time my other work had been published in magazines.
And the fact that she helped you, but what made you so famous during the Harlem Renaissance? What did you write about that made Mr. Langston Hughes so famous?
Really, it was my style. And my forms of writing, came from jazz poetry. I was the first of my kind. Really, I was best known for my work during the Harlem Renaissance. Famous when I wrote about the Negro in Vogue, and then y'all changed it to when Harlem was in vogue. That was really it.
Okay. Well, once again, that was Mr. Langston Hughes interviewing with him. We had a Mr. Blast from the Past today. Thank you, Ms. Ann Petrie, for joining us. This has been Word on the Street. I'm Janella. See you next time.
Harlem.
So